In this video, I'm here to talk about past accomplishments and paths forward for coastal small to medium enterprises, the marginalized foundation for economy development in blue ocean value chains. Hello, my name is Ian Nish. I've been 80 years on this planet, and during about 60 of those, I've been involved with economy. I've also witnessed the tragedy of the commons that has befallen so much of the world that we live in. Well, during my lifetime, the Earth has had fourfold human population growth. Now the planet is home to about 8 billion of us. Tropical seaweed farming was born, had gratifying growth, and then it showed disappointing stagnation. Marine resources were devastated through the tragedy of the commons. Proposed solution frameworks have proliferated. You can see several of them here. For example, the United Nations has 17 Sustainable Development Goals, but these can only be scored with profitable SME on the teams. Well, this continuum of framework philosophies ranges from the sublime to the ridiculous. At the one hand, we have ecosophy, which is ecological wisdom. It's a philosophy of environmental harmony that goes beyond science to foster connections among environmental, social, and mental realms. At the other end of the scale, we have ecosophistry, something which is all too common. Ecosophistry is a term that's used to describe the use of clever, superficially plausible, but ultimately fallacious, misleading, or unsound arguments concerning environmental issues. SME are small to medium enterprises. Ecosophy solutions require prospering SME and blue ocean value chains. Basically, this is where value chains are facilitated by suites of kits, which are knowledge, information, tools, and solutions. Ultimately, what we hope is that prosperous farming SME will lead to satisfied customers, as ecosystem services are harmonized and valorized per eco-economic principles. SME are the backbone of ASEAN economies and indeed world economies, but in the ASEAN region where I live, about 97 to 99% of all enterprises are SME. That's over 60% of private sector jobs and 30 to 50% of value-added production, which is driving engagement with regional and global value. SME are crucial for driving economic growth, regional development, and innovation across all ASEAN member states. Now, tropical seaweed farming is an outstanding example of large-scale crop production developed from simple methods refined by farmers in the sea. Virtually all tropical seaweed farming is done by SME. For the foreseeable future, tropical seaweed farming will overwhelmingly be undertaken by coastal SME. But, like many SME around the world, seaweed SME are marginalized and are woefully undersupported by weak market systems. Now, coast dwellers do not jump out of bed at the crack of dawn and labor under the hot sun every day to save the planet. No, they strive to put food on the table. Seaweeds convert sunshine and seawater into money. All seaweed farming enterprise ecology functions in socio-ecological production ecoscapes, what we call SEPE. An enterprise ecology is undertaken by people who are embedded in ecosystem services provision, living and working in the ecoscape. In the world of aquaculture, influence prevails over management or control, so influence prevails. These are some major market system influence agents, and these outfits have diverse agendas. They're also external to value chains. Strategic business alliances result when enterprises combine unique resources to seek competitive advantage. Strategic alliances are trusting relationships that are often the only feasible option for SME building long-term competitive advantage while retaining independence. About religion, well, Seaweed SME are owned and operated by people who follow the diverse religions of the world. So influence agents engaging with SME must be acutely aware of the religious climate in which they operate. Beware of imposing sort of Western notions of family values, gender identities, and similar norms and mores on traditional societies and coastal ecoscapes, however. Again, with respect to politics, jurisdiction over blue ocean ecoscapes falls under a bewildering array of political influences. SME are abundant in all socio-economic and political systems, but so is corruption and incompetence. So SME have to deal with that everywhere too. Again, with regard to politics, we have to beware of rent seekers. SME have to avoid rent-seeking behavior that sucks revenues away from active value chain players, especially ecoscape enterprises. With respect to governance, well, when governance becomes red tape, it can kill blue ocean sustainability. Good governance facilitates value chain operation, but obstructive red tape strangles value chains. In the world of academia, well, academia functions externally to blue ocean value chains and has its own transaction systems. Academia and eco-enterprises coexist on the same planet, but they inhabit mindscapes from two different worlds. Also, with respect to academia, well, they sell people on studying and getting degrees, but as it turns out, there are often few jobs for graduates unless they create SME themselves. Case in point, here I am in 1971 in Canada. There were no jobs around, so we built this boat and harvested seaweed plus sea urchins in the Bay of Fundy between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick. This was Atlantic mariculture, and it was the beginning of where I am today. Synergies and collaborations between academia and eco-enterprises can flourish only with adequate investment in kits, such as climate sensing systems, blue ocean engineering, and blue utility systems. So there's lots of room for academia and SME to work together. We just have to find the best ways of making that happen. With respect to the intervention sector, well, a universe of intervention agents has proliferated in my lifetime, and here are a few examples. Unfortunately, in my experience, little meaningful input from the multi-millions of dollars spent by such organizations seems to have trickled down to SME in coastal ecoscapes. So, I think it's fair to say that most owners and operators of SEPE, eco-enterprises, are justifiably cynical about benefits they allegedly receive from intervention agents. For example, donor-funded intervention agents tend to compete with each other, not collaborate, at least in my experience. Interventions are commonly justified on the pretext that they lead to strengthening of coastal SME. But I've observed that funds tend to go more to overheads, meetings, monitoring, and evaluation rather than to engagement with ecoscape enterprises. Accumulated kits, like reports, seem to have been seldom read in the projects I've been involved with. They are sparingly distributed and or lost after project termination as well. A flood of hype on social media emanating from what Dave Mislobodsky calls the new seaweed cowboys. Well, that's the order of the day on social media. There are many branded solutions being flogged around the world. I haven't seen too many of them yet that apply to real SME along the seashore. And increasing numbers of real or virtual conferences are being held every year. What you might call virtual interventionism has become a business in its own right. Maybe it's worth even more than the seaweed business itself by now. In conclusion about this virtual seaweed verse, I would say that SME and actual ecoscapes could make major progress if even half of the transaction value generated by such activities could actually trickle down as investments in real SME. Swimming against the tide. Well, numerous advisors have told me that nobody wants to invest in family businesses. So we must swim against the tide to make these happen. Tropical seaweed farming initially succeeded because of market pull from processors who desperately needed cultivated raw materials. Anchor buyers who needed cost-effective semi-refined carrageenan also entered the picture fairly quickly. Now, it's worth pointing out that tropical seaweed SME originally are the ones that develop nucleus hubs funded and operated by major processors integral to carrageenan value chains. Tropical red seaweed farming came basically from three innovative SME back in the 70s, and these collectively had about 90% of global market share. However, these were all absorbed by large multinational companies by the mid-1990s, and they became cash cows. They were no longer innovators. Processing proliferated among more than 80 companies, but not all that many of them are innovative. They're more into, copy. Nowadays, the big alpha players are China and Indonesia. They now dominate global carrageenan value chains. Value chains became weak when farm SME got detached from processors and users. So for decades now, we've basically had price-based arm's-length transactions. This is known as market governance. Tropical seaweed SME become really sustainable when nucleus hubs integral to diverse value chains embed phyconomy kits as SME core competencies in relational value chains. So that is what we are trying to bring about with enterprise ecology. Well, at SeaKits Hub, we believe that enterprise ecology is the solution for sustainable blue ocean phyconomy. Now, enterprise ecology is an umbrella term that covers agroecology, phycoecology, urban ecology, etc., etc., etc. The thing is that all of this involves enterprises. You have enterprises, you have ecology, and the two must go together. we're striving for blue ocean eco-economies where SME and coastal ecoscapes operate enterprise ecology systems to harmonize and valorize ecosystem services. Now, this involves power by the sun that is enabled by photosynthesis. 6-carbon galactans, for example. Now, in our kits systems, we have knowledge and solutions that are actually evolving frameworks and concepts, and this is where we get to use tools like artificial intelligence. On the other hand, tools and information are the sensors, receptors, and effectors without which the an artificial intelligence or any other kind of intelligence cannot function. So put all that together and we have knowledge, information, tools and solutions, kits. Now, enterprise ecology embraces the FAO 10 elements of agroecology, or enterprise ecology as we prefer to call it. And the key element here is co-creation and sharing of knowledge by SME in alliance networks. Major support is required from comprehensive initiatives of influence agents, however, to accelerate progress, because we need to develop knowledge systems and information systems for example, phyconomy, blue utility systems, biorefining, blue ocean engineering, climate sensing, and so forth. Success is measured by real products, profitable and sustainable from real SME and value chains. Now, the keystone of sustainable seaweed industry development and expansion in blue ocean enterprise ecology systems is modular biorefineries with embedded utilities that undertake multi-stream zero effluent processing in coastal ecoscapes. Now, we call that MUSE. Phyconomy is just one among many kit suites that help SME to harmonize and valorize ecosystem services. Enterprise ecology SME becomes sustainably profitable by harmonizing and valorizing diverse ecosystem services, not just by monocropping seaweed. Seaweed farming fits into this sort of holistic picture in ecoscapes. So we have ecosystem services being harmonized and valorized, integrated aquaculture going on, and nutrient and energy cycles being quantified and understood. In blue oceans, ecoeconomics are the basis of sustainability. So enterprise ecology embraces applied ecoeconomics. Ecoeconomics are the complex, interdependent, and co-evolutionary relationship between human economics and natural ecosystem services. Fundamental to all this, at least to the seaweed farmers, is to find paths beyond stagnant zero-sum seaweed markets. So, we must improve carrageenan technology, and we must expand beyond carrageenan with innovative new products. For example, here are some markets that the World Bank predicts will result in billions of US dollars per annum being added to seaweed market size by 2030. A key point, however, is that industry expansion to embrace all of these types of products must be innovative, not copycat. Strategic business alliance networks are the path toward SME blue ocean sustainability, and the key element there is local nucleus hubs and the local enterprise ecology hubs must be linked to global networks. Now, SME with internalized phyconomy kits must be consolidated into linked networks that deal with all of the marvelous things that modern IT can make available to us, and we'll address that next. So down to the final summation as we talk about building SME mindsets from the tragedy of the commons to build blue ocean ecoscapes. So we've seen how legacy mindsets led to tragedies of the commons, from, activities like overpopulation, massive plastics pollution, blast fishing, fishing with poisons, and so forth. We've seen how some formerly prosperous seaweed farming areas are dystopian nowadays. We have ruined farm facilities and abandoned farms all around where I live in the Philippines today. For example, there's been about a 90% decline in seaweed production in Region 7, the area of the Philippines where I live. Productive ecoscapes became remittance economies where the kids leave home and find work somewhere else in the world and send money back to the family. Not only that, but many knowledge economy remittance jobs are now being wiped out by artificial intelligence. So that option is actually diminishing nowadays. However, AI can liberate people to do what they do best, and we hope to focus on being able to do that. So we must build SME blue ocean mindscapes by expanding ecosophy kitscapes to beget evolving mindscapes. In other words, the phenomena, the attitudes that led to the tragedy of the commons must be replaced by attitudes that are building blue ocean mindscapes that lead to SME and sustainable blue ocean ecoscapes, like what you see here. So, building multiple SME revenue streams by harmonizing and valorizing ecosystem services, that's what we have to be doing. So we need to build seaweed provisioning services, like, for example, producing seaweed, integrated aquaculture services that provide a whole range of aquaculture products, Muse biorefining that uses the full biomass and turns it into useful products, stewardships of marine protected areas and other natural areas without which no aquaculture systems can be sustainable. And in doing all this, we need to obtain a lot of data to build climate kit suites and just understand how the natural environment is interacting with the biomass in the ecoscapes. This picture shows an example of the kinds of harmonized and valorized ecosystem services we are working with. The SME are involved in provisioning services, support services, cultural services, and regulating services. There is an opportunity to engage investing enterprises and individuals committed to blue ocean economy principles, especially among local and regional stakeholders dedicated to sustainable development of their home ecoscapes. We are trying our best to engage such people so that we're not dependent on chasing after big bucks from places far away. In Philippines Region 7, the Bohol UNESCO Global Geopark, with more than 200 marine protected areas, comprises an unbeatable geographic focus for seaweed and blue ocean development. So this is the region where we are attempting to provide proof of concept for the application of enterprise ecology. Please join us to develop sustainable blue oceans, one enterprise at a time with enterprise ecology. Thanks for watching.